So Forbes, about a year, 2 years ago, along with a lot of other periodicals, released this great study about leaders. And in this study, it asked, what are the 5 main qualities of business leaders? And creativity was in that top 5, and on a lot of those periodicals, it was number 1 of the top 5. And the creatives, myself and all the creatives in the country and around the world, breathed a collective sigh of relief. Finally, we felt that, creativity, artistry was not just considered a luxury, but it was beneficial, and not just beneficial, but it's necessary. It's necessary. It's sad. One of the first things to get cut when budgets go bad in schools is the arts. And yet here we are, Forbes magazine, start claiming that creativity is among the most important qualities of a business leader. So in about 2009, I was working at Regent University, and God kind of spoke to me and said, I want you to help the church become the leading culture shaper and maker in the world once again through the arts, media, and entertainment, which seemed to me a very easy calling. Luckily, I'm not the only one that was called into this mission. Over the last few years, more and more people, I'm talking to more and more people are getting excited about this. I want to talk about some of the background about the church and the arts and our culture in the arts, why we should care about the arts, and then some practical ways to go forward. So some background is church culture. Since about the Renaissance, the church has not been the major culture shaper in the world through arts. Since about the Renaissance, that's about roughly, it ended 400 to 415 years ago, and we in the church, sadly, in a lot of ways, has all but abandoned the arts world. And that's a real challenge. Steve Turner, who's a theological aesthetician, try to say that one 3 times fast, he is also a music journalist. He speaks and he says, the church currently doesn't even have a seat at the table in discussions on pop culture and artistry. So it's not even that we're at the kids' table. We're not even at any table as a church. Now, luckily, this is changing. I'm thrilled to report this is changing, but it paints kind of a picture of where we are. Now, here's some interesting things. So as a church, or as people might go, yeah, but it's the arts, and why should we care about the arts? I mean, maybe there's a reason why we haven't been involved for 400 years. Maybe there's a good reason for that. And I go, okay, well, let me be an advocate for why we should care about the arts. First of all, the arts are the language of the soul. Stephen Sondheim wrote a musical called Sunday in the Park with George. It's about George Seurat, the famous impressionist who painted the picture Sunday afternoon on the island of Le Grand Jatte, which hangs in the Chicago Art Institute. It's a very famous impressionist painting. And in that story, one of the characters, Dot, says two of the most important things we can leave behind when we pass away are children and art. It paints a picture of the importance and the need of arts. How do we understand other cultures? When we look into other cultures, when we move into other cultures, when we're communicating with other ones, third world countries, whoever, even across the cultures in the United States, how do we understand other people? It's very frequently, it's their artistic products, it's their dances. Other third world countries, we look at masks, we look at dances, rituals, paintings. We consume their art to understand about them. And why? Because art is about belief. It's the language of the soul. It tells us about what they believe and what they value. As a matter of fact, sometimes I've talked to some people and they go, what do you do? And I'm like, I'm a person, I'm in theater, I'm in the arts. And they go, what are you going to do with that? And of course, if you're an artist, everybody goes, yeah, we kind of, collective, kind of thing. And well, I kind of facetiously look back and what do you do? Well, I study history. And I go, you wouldn't exist without the arts. And it's true, it's facetious, but it's true. It's, if we look at science, if we look at the arts, if we look at government, all these things, they exist because of what we've studied. If we look at the Greeks, we know about philosophy, we know about the Roman governments through architecture, through the art, through the literature, through the poetry, through the drama. That's how we learn about what has existed. That's how we learn, and how we know where we're going is what we've learned before. So the arts are the language of the soul. They're very important. Second, they are influential. The arts are terribly influential. Our culture is a visual culture, if nothing else. Okay, and that's Western culture. It's not even just America, it's Western culture. The arts, if you think of commercials, if you think of cereal boxes and what they look like, if you think of just about anything, what money looks like. We're a visual culture, and all of that takes artistry to communicate. They're influential. Music, what people listen to, what moves people, what students are doing, Facebook, Snapchat, all these different social media platforms exist from arts, media, and entertainment. They're all part of that same field, and they are what they're influencing our culture in a major, major way. Very often, if we are not in that realm, we will not be influential, especially when it comes to the youth. But in general, God could have made a drab world. It would have worked perfectly. But He didn't. He created it with color, with sunsets, with all sorts of different stuff. The arts are influential. They speak to our soul. Third, God cares about the arts. If you read the Bible from a theological, artistic perspective, the arts are everywhere. Not only is the Bible itself a work of art, but everything about God is a work of art. Bezalel, who built the tabernacle, was an artist called by God in artistry. In artistry, he had a calling to do art. God clearly cares about the arts. In the beginning, God what? Created. It's the first thing we know about God. It's not just what He does, it's who He is. He's a creator, and we are made in His image. We have the opportunity to co-create with Him. That's a responsibility we all must wrestle with. God cares about the arts. Look at a sunset. He cares about artistry. Develop a theology and philosophy of the arts. Read the Bible from an artistic perspective. Every person must do this. Okay, it's a requirement for every person. Let me put it this way. We're created in the image of God. God's a creator. We need to know about that side of who God is. You go, I'm not creative. I'm like, really? What color did you pick your house? What color did you pick? What clothes did you choose to wear? What curtains did you put up? You're creative. Every one of us, if we're made in the image of God, guess what? We're creative. That's it. That's just the way it is. Okay? Develop a theology of the art. Understand the nature and the purpose of the arts. The nature and the purpose of the arts is about what it means to be human. That's what it's about. Who we are as humans. Okay? That means it's messy. Arts are messy. Okay? Literally, sometimes. But I mean, humans are messy. Arts are messy. We cannot bow to fear of what we don't understand in fear of the messy. If we were to present truly a movie about everything that happens in the Bible, fully, accurately depict it, I'm not sure Christians would go and see it. And I say that because the Bible deals with real people, real stuff. We can't be afraid of it. It's not to be feared. Actually, there's so much more freedom. There's two boxes. I kind of feel like in the history of the arts, Christianity has had a very small box of what's allowable. And then the world has this pretty massive box of what's allowable. Now, I'm not saying, there's some things that perhaps we really should not be allowable in the arts. But then you got to think about God. God doesn't have a box. So we're in this box, the world's kind of out here. God is everywhere. The Lordship of Christ is everywhere. He doesn't have a box. Okay, it's massive what His box is. We got to connect in. So there's freedom in Christ. There's freedom. So we should feel free to deal with the things that are edifying, but also the things that are cautionary and hard. Another thing, we must create. We have to foster creativity. We have to just create things. We have to create a world where people like to create. We keep doing it. So Christian movies, we keep creating. They may not be perfect. They may be artistically rough, but they're getting better. And they don't just have to be about Christians. We can also do other artwork. It's okay. That's edifying. It doesn't just have to be, and also just because it's religious doesn't mean it's holy. Just because the subject matter is pious doesn't mean it is. So there's a lot in there. Third, the church, this is a really practical one. Church needs to be a patron of the arts. What would happen if the church went downtown Sacramento on second Saturdays where all the artists are out and says, hey, we're going to take like $1,000 and we're just going to go find art we like and buy it. Could you imagine? One of the reasons the church is bad at art is because artists aren't in the church. We have all but let the artists go and said, that's okay, we've abandoned them. What would happen if the artists came back in the church? Well, I'll tell you right now, we might have a renaissance. What a concept. So what would happen in a witness? Artists would go, a church just bought all my work. Could you imagine? And it doesn't matter if they're Christian or not. You don't have to know that. You don't have to, every time we go to Walmart and say, oh, who created this ladle? We want to know if they're Christian in here. We don't do that stuff. So we don't have to do it with art either. But if you like the piece of art and you go, hey, this would look great in the church, buy it. Who cares if they're a Christian or not? Just go buy it. And could you imagine? They go, a church just bought all my art. What would that do to the artist? I mean, that's revival right there. So I encourage you, I implore you, this is an important place, and we can bring culture back. We are at revival. We can do this. Would you join me?